The Knots Company welcomes you back to Focus on Automation, where we explore and celebrate advances that empower manufacturing. Welcome back to Focus on Automation. I'm your host, Todd Youngblood, and today we're going to take another look inside an organization that continues to demonstrate a lot of excellence in helping to improve the profitability and competitiveness of manufacturers throughout the great state of New Jersey. Please welcome Mr. John Kennedy. He's CEO of the New Jersey Manufacturing Extension Program, NJ MEP. I always struggle to say the acronym. John, thanks for joining us today.
Good to be here. Thanks, Todd.
Just to kick us off, John, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you ended up landing at NJ MEP, and then give us a quick overview of the organization.
Well, I've spent most of my career, over 35 years, in engineering and manufacturing. In fact, I own two New Jersey-based companies, one manufacturing company and another an engineering firm. And after I sold those, I was working for a large entity, and it wasn't that much fun because it was too big. Great company, but too big. And, you know, the people from NJ MEP came along and said, hey, do you want to take a look at us? And that's 8 years ago now. So it was a good transition. The fact is that, you know, NJ MEP is part of a national organization, which I'm sure you know. It's out of the U.S. Department of Commerce. It's NIST MEP. You know, it's a great setup and a great structure. None of us are, the 51 centers are actually government entities. We're individual companies that have some focus completely on STEM, manufacturing, logistics, and so on. In New Jersey, we have about 11,000 companies in this area, about 400,000 employees, and we do four things. We assess companies, we consult with those companies, we train, do a lot of in-house training, but we're also delving into workforce development as well, and we advocate, which is an interesting concept for engineers to discuss with politicians, anything, because our minds work differently. I won't tell you whose I think is better, but our minds work differently.
Somehow I think I have an inkling of what your opinion is, but interesting you bring up the advocacy thing. We're all, at least I am, sick of talking about COVID and the impact it's had on us, but we're 9 months into this now. It's obviously a political football. Talk a little bit about what you've seen, what you're doing, what manufacturing companies in New Jersey are doing now that everybody's kind of used to dealing with it, or at least, you know, resigned to dealing with it. Are there political overtones to all that? What are you seeing?
Well, you know, I mean, the reality is I think there's political overtones to everything and anything. At least that's what I've learned. But I've got to give New Jersey some props, not only our legislative manufacturing caucus, which really has been active during this time, but also Governor Phil Murphy. And I don't say this lightly because, you know, we advocated very strongly to keep manufacturing 100% essential. And and they listened to us, and that, you know, that keeps things going. You know, a lot of states closed down everything or closed down part of the supply chain. There were some states that closed packaging and labeling companies, but not the other manufacturing for different products. How many times you got into a store and bought a loaf of bread without a bag around it, or gone to CVS and gotten a handful of pills? So I'm really proud of our state for standing up in this matter, and I'm really proud of our manufacturers who kept at it all this time. You know, we talk about unsung heroes. Well, it's not just, you know, the first responders and the medical people. It's people like manufacturers and the truck drivers and the people in stores and so on and so forth. So yeah, they're dealing with it, but you know what? You know, they've kept us fed, they kept us medicated, and they kept us in PPE. So I'm proud of them.
This notion of unsung heroes is really intriguing. Do you have a story or two, an example or two of some real creative innovations that folks have implemented just to get us through this crazy year?
Well, there's actually quite a few. On day one, we really separated Rob Sturmauer, who's spoken on this program before, our COO. We instituted critical supply chain. And that was for the things that we couldn't get, no one could get. The different PPEs, masks, cleaning supplies, disinfectants, and so on. And we had a number of companies. Some companies made parts of those,
Right.
but didn't make all of the item. And it's amazing to me how many companies have just stood up, retooled on their own dime to do something. And many of them have given away their product, whether it's masks. I was at a company the other day that gave away thousands of gowns because they make the textile. In fact, precision textile. Another company, Blue Track. Another company, Union Wear, Gemco, Suchi. All of these companies just amazed me with the fact that they felt they needed to do this, not even concerned so much about whether it was going to make them any money or whether it was a long-term decision. That's pretty impressive. To me, that's an unsung hero.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely couldn't agree more. I want to shift a little bit. You talked about supply chain a minute ago, and I mean the whole push toward reshoring for all kinds of different reasons has been going on for some time. What's your thought on that, given the disruption we had in the supply chain, particularly first, March, April, back when this thing first hit? Where do you see the whole reshoring movement going?
It's a stilted view, reshoring. I know there needs to be some of that, but a lot of times when I talk about reshoring, they're talking about companies coming back to New Jersey or the country. My look at it is we already have 11,000 companies here.
Yep.
Let's support them. Let's understand that maybe their hourly wage by law is higher than somebody in North Korea, South Korea, Vietnam, China, wherever, India. And let's understand that, but that they are doing a great job. The quality of American goods is phenomenal. So while I think that we need to look at it, we also need to understand that manufacturing never went away.
Mm-hmm.
We told that lie for 30 years, and we all did, So,
Yep.
There's too many of us to blame, so it's not like that. But when you talk about supply chain, I think you first saw huge inklings when President Trump did the tariffs.
Right.
Now, what it showed us, and you can argue whether it was right or wrong, I'm not arguing that, but what it showed us that America doesn't make certain types of steel and aluminum anymore. We don't make it here. Wow. We're reliant on people that may or may not be our friends. That's not a good move. And then this comes along and we find out that not only the PPE and the masks that are coming from overseas, but I read somewhere that 95% of our blood pressure medicine comes from China. That's not good business on any level. When banks want to lend a company money and they see that you have 50% of your business with one company, they probably won't give you the money you want because it's bad business. But our country has been doing this bad business for a long time. I do hope it's a lesson we learn, Todd, but time will tell.
Yeah. Let's flip it around a little bit. What kinds of things are you hearing from the companies that you're working with, those 11,000 manufacturing organizations in Jersey? What are they telling you is the biggest issues right now?
Well, they haven't changed that much. One's workforce development. There's no pipeline for people because we've alleviated that from, it's not only the thought that everybody has to go to college, it's the thought that manufacturing doesn't exist, so don't go into manufacturing and STEM. And that's silly on so many levels. So that's number one. We're working quite a bit. In fact, our buddies from Knott's have helped us with some of our high-end apprenticeship programs and so on. What we also hear is regulation. And it's not that they want softer regulation. They're okay with, if the regulation says X, we'll do it, but we need communication to be able to comply.
Right.
So that becomes a huge, huge issue because they don't get a response from anybody, so they can't move ahead, and then goes to the next level, the next levels. And you know, in business, if a Walmart gives your company an order, they don't want to wait 6-9 months for a response. So those are two of the biggest things. Another thing in New Jersey is that we have a reputation for not being business friendly, although we have a great business community, not just in manufacturing, but across the board. But our New Jersey departments and so on don't rely as much on New Jersey companies as I think they should. And that's something, you know, we as an industry have to raise our hand and say, hey, let's go.
Yeah, I want to poke at workforce development a little bit more. You mentioned training is one of the three main things that NJ MEP is doing. Talk a little bit about workforce development. What are you doing? What are the key requirements? And, you know, what are the best things coming out of the efforts you're expending?
Well, for a long time, we've been involved in doing in-plant training for Lean, Six Sigma, OSHA, ISO 9000, et cetera. And that's long been something, but that's more of a group effort. One of the things that we started to develop about 4 years ago was to put back into use more apprenticeships, because they've fallen off, even with unions now, which is a shame. You know, apprenticeships have fallen off the table, and people don't understand what an apprenticeship actually is. So we spoke to a lot of companies and developed a program that we call the Pro Action Network. And we developed it based upon input from companies. They can't wait 3 to 5 years for somebody to be up to speed. So our programs are 1.5 years, but we've dovetailed them with various partners in the state. One of the partners is our Votech CTE schools. They're a great feeder for our programs. Another partner moving forward out of ours is the county college system in New Jersey, which is a great system. You know, you're a former resident, you know how good it is. And so they're working with us to give our apprenticeships a certain amount of credit so they can stack credits and move on. And then we've got some, you know, solid 4-year schools, you know, Rowan, Rutgers, NJIT. NJIT's been our partner from day one. So it's got to have on-ramps and off-ramps, because we just don't need a machinist or a welder, although we need a lot of those. But we also need that machinist to evolve into a CNC programmer or an engineer, you know, or a designer or a technical salesperson.
Yeah.
So this has really taken off, and we've worked very closely with the state's DOL, the Department of Labor, who has really gotten on board with this. I hope that it continues after the other side of COVID, but again, my crystal ball is broken, as you found out yesterday.
I want to talk a little more, a bit more about apprenticeships, because on the one hand, when you use that word, everybody I talk to, when you say apprenticeship, you see the gleam in the eye, and they understand what you're saying. But then if you dig down a little bit and ask the random person, just what exactly is an apprenticeship and how does it work and why is it good? And I think a lot of folks' understanding really turns out to be kind of fuzzy. So if I'm a young person and I'm hearing go do an apprenticeship, and I'm saying, what does that mean? What does that mean for me as an individual? What am I going to do, and why is it good for me?
Yeah, it's interesting because most people don't know. You know, they have no idea what it really means. And the fact is that it has evolved. But we talk a lot about the German model,
right?
But we don't understand the German model because apprenticeships are across the board. One of my team, who is phenomenal at apprenticeship, Torsten Szymanski, he's a product of the German model, but his apprenticeship was in finance. He has 2 college degrees, including a master's. So we don't look at it like that. We think it's the end of the line and not the beginning of the line. Apprenticeships, you're getting paid to learn skills. That's it in a nutshell. You're getting paid to be trained to have a skill. And that's just it, is that, you know, I actually started my career as an apprentice, electrical apprentice, because I needed money to get through college. My dad had passed suddenly when I was a teen. Mom didn't have any money, so I had a choice to make. Luckily, I could play baseball well, and that helped, but I also needed income. So, you know, that helped me grow, but it also taught me significant skills. So it's a stepping stone for where you want to go. And I was looking at the National Association of Manufacturing website and looking at the state New Jersey report. It says the average annual salary in New Jersey for a manufacturing worker is $94,000. That's pretty damn good.
That's a surprising number, John.
Yeah, well, you know, but that's it. People don't, you know, because you're not talking about people that stay, the guy that's at the end of the line putting something in boxes or bringing something to the machinist. If you do this right, and that includes apprenticeships, that person grows.
Right.
Grows to that machinist, to that CNC programmer, to that engineer. And that's why the on-ramps and off-ramps are so important. The person needs to choose where they want to go, and we need to provide the pathways. And most companies will pay for your education. And I've heard that education's pretty expensive now.
Just a bit.
You know, it's drifted down to me. You know, my son's 30, you know, and you know, he went ROTC through college, but you know, it's anything that can offset these programs, whether it's apprenticeships, county college, 2-year degrees, why not? I get you want the college experience, but at what price?
At what price? Great question. Great question. 2021, just around the corner. What's 2021 going to be like for manufacturers in New Jersey, John?
Well, most of them will not be watching the Atlanta Falcons in the Super Bowl.
That one hurt.
Or the Giants.
Or the Giants. Jets. Or the Eagles.
But, you know, I think it's an interesting year. I think there's been a lot of focus put back on the industry, but I hope it's the right type of focus. The CARES Act program that came out earlier, you know, which I think was very helpful, not only to people needed that support, but also to companies. But I looked and I was looking through the programs, and there was over $1 billion invested into the agricultural industry. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I have no idea whether that's right or wrong. It's really not my thing. But what was invested into directly into the manufacturing industry through the MEP National Network was $50 million. Now that's a lot of money to you and me. But when you're talking about 300,000 manufacturers in the country, wow, that doesn't go a long way.
Right. It's almost irrelevant.
So we're talking a good game. We're talking about, you know, reshoring and spending money and doing all these things. But the proof is in the pudding. It's how you act. It's not what you say. So
yeah.
It'll be interesting. A lot of the manufacturing companies that we work with are really, really busy. They're filling gaps, you know, in the supply chain, and they're really busy. But there's a big deal of concern, obviously, and goes back to that workforce development thing we've been talking about.
Yeah, gotcha. Hey, before we close out here, John, I just want to make sure, I know you've got some upcoming virtual events. We got National Manufacturing Day. Tell us what's coming down the pipe here that we can take advantage of.
Well, the National Manufacturing Day is the first Friday in October. And it's, you know, this past year that we've done it, it was 100% virtual. We usually have about 800 people filling a room, including Suzanne Tracy, you know, running around, you know, active as she could be. But this year was different. But we had over 1,400 people attend our program with breakout sessions, strategy sessions, and it was really kind of cool. So that's led us to re-look, at least in 2021, at our State of New Jersey manufacturing program. That's a little different than anything else we run because it's really where we're trying to tie in government legislators to the industry. That's what it's all about, communication between the two. We don't really want educators or consultants and stuff. There's nothing wrong with those industries, but we're not looking for that. We need to get these two groups talking. So this year we're going to be running 3, one focused on North Jersey, one Central, and any other in South. And we're really excited about this because the platform we're using is called Clarity Experiences, and it was around before COVID, and it's really a neat package. It gives us so much flexibility to do things that isn't right now available in WebEx or Zoom, or it's just a different program. So we're excited about that, and we're going to have you sing the national anthem.
That's a frightening thought. John, one more question. If you had one piece of advice to lay out to the owner or the manager of a plant in a New Jersey manufacturing facility, what would that tip be going into 2021?
Speak up. Our industry has become infamous, if you will, for keeping its head down. If you don't speak up, nobody hears you. And how you can speak up, certainly at some of our events, but more importantly, write a letter to your Congress or senator or assembly person. Speak up. Don't be overly critical, but speak up and tell them what your issue are and how you can help, because these companies are part of our community. They stay in New Jersey because they love New Jersey, not because they're the only place to go for them. So that would be my first thing, is you got to speak up, because if we keep our heads down, everybody's going to think we're still dead.
John Kennedy, CEO of the New Jersey Manufacturing Extension Program, NJ MEP. Thanks for taking the time to share your insights and for speaking up.
Usually not my problem.
That wraps today's episode. On behalf of my guest, John Kennedy, and our sponsor, the Knott's Company, I'm Todd Youngblood. Talk to you again soon.